Here's my selection of some fragrances for fall, either ones I've been wearing or look forward to wearing as the weather cools down. I'm a big seasonal wearer, not because I believe you should follow any rules, but I just think that different weather really makes me in the mood for different scents. I've got, I guess, 11 here, which I decided to break into little groups of different themes. We'll start with the classics, ones that have been talked about a lot. First up is Eau Noire. I've got to say these days it's not my favorite fragrance anymore. It's just so spicy in a way. It reminds you of like Christmas spices, cider, but it's still a really, really interesting fragrance. Spicy, lavendery, syrupy. It's very heavy. I like the intro a lot, but I find the dry down goes more and more towards that curry direction and starts to smell more and more like food, which is the aspect I don't like so much. I've never tried the later releases. I bought this at the Dior boutique because I was a big fashion fan and still am, and I really followed Eddie Sliman's work at Dior, and so I was really excited when he creatively directed these first three fragrances, and I ended up buying this in Bois d'Argent. But still, it's the kind of thing that I maybe feel like wearing once or twice a year. When I do, I think, wow, that's a really good, interesting perfume. I can't wait to smell it again next year. But not because I'm babying this. It's just, it's such a heavy, such an interesting, such a different smell. I guess challenging, that I'm just not in the mood for it very often. But I am curious if the newer one might be something that I would want to wear more every day. The other one that's kind of a no-brainer, probably one of my all-time favorite scents, Bois d'Orage. Now officially called French Lover in every country. I'm running low on this bottle. It's pretty old. I'm wondering if I should try to finish it up and get a new one, as I know that things can tend to go off if you hang on to a small amount, but it looks like 30% left there. And wet woods gives me the sense of being in a forest after the rain. There's a chill to it, which sometimes can be almost too cold in cold air, if that makes sense. Like if you're already feeling damp and cold, the fragrance makes you feel even more damp and cold. But yeah, there's something about the way it really melds with your skin and wears beautifully, sort of becomes a part of you. Some people complain about performance, but I think it's one that's easy to go nose blind to because of that effect of really combining with your skin, as I've had a few instances where I wore it and couldn't smell it anymore, but others commented that it smelled great. Here's one not often talked about, but has been around for a while. Serge Lutens, Encens et Lavande. One of my few Lutens, and I think it's because this one is different than his usual style, and it's the kind of thing that speaks more to me, that it's very simple. It's basically what it says, lavender and incense. It's a super dry, a little bit soapy lavender, has echoes of sort of a barber shop fragrance, but I like that it's so precise and so simple, so minimalist. The incense is a little bit more suppressed than I remember from when I tried it a long time ago, but it's possible that I just wasn't used to incense, so that stuck out to my nose at the time. Now I get mostly lavender with just the slightest wisp of incense in the background, but it really feels perfect for fall weather. And then the other sort of classic, the big boy, 31 Rue Cambon. This feels too heavy for summer or warm weather, but it's gorgeous in fall and winter. To me, it's sort of an amalgamation of all the Chanel fragrances. We've got aldehydes at top, we've got bergamot, we've got warm labdanum in the base and patchouli. We've got the iris giving it a creaminess. It's sort of got like little notes from that are, further explored in other fragrances in the line. This one took me a while to like, and I've also noticed because it is so complex, it can smell really different depending on the day, I suppose, depending on the weather, the mood, how I'm smelling. But yeah, it's one of those things that makes you kind of go wow every time you wear it, and it really takes you on a journey. So those are my classics. Make way for, while we're speaking of iris. Iris is another very sort of fall type perfume. It has that melancholy, it has that coolness, so we can't leave out La Pausa. This one is a bit too light, I find, in summer, but also a bit too cool for winter, so really shines in fall and spring. This also took me a while to get. I used to think it was really similar to number 19 or maybe not unique enough to make it worth it. But now owning a bottle, I think it's great. There's this really big powdery iris at the intro, but dries down and I get more and more vetiver. I think, again, my first impression was that it was very makeup-y, very feminine Chanel. And now that I'm used to it, it feels totally unisex because it's very dry. Like I said, I get a lot of vetiver in the dry down. It wears wispy and airy, but also I can detect it all day. And I always like fragrances that do that. And the other Iris Nazarena from Aedis de Venustus. This is the new packaging. I used to go to their store back in the day when it was sort of by Washington Square. I forget what area that is, but now it's moved to a really remote part of lower East Side. And I went there last February and ended up purchasing this. The time, what's interesting is I nearly regretted it because it was sort of a sniff and buy thing. And when I got it home, I found that the juniper really blasted everything out in an annoying way. But I think part of it, again, was the weather. It's not really for really cold weather because this fragrance itself feels quite cold. Maybe my nose changed, my perception of the fragrance changed, or maybe the fragrance itself just needed to kind of settle down and come together. But now I get a lot more of the iris, and I'm no longer getting that sense of an overwhelming kind of shaving foam juniper taking over that I did before. I don't have a memory of the original packaging, so I can't tell you if this is different, but it smells great. I've been wearing it this fall, and I really love it, and I'm glad I didn't sort of rashly get rid of it last winter when I first purchased it. So those are a couple irises for fall. Next, again, sort of on that theme, we've got the lightweights. So something about fall, I think, lends itself to wearing some lighter fragrances that maybe would have been obliterated by the summer heat, but also not heavy enough to stand up to the deep winter. So I find myself gravitating towards some of these really light, wispy fragrances like Hermes Osmanth Yunnan. This one, another interesting effect, where the first few times I tried it, it seemed to disappear after 5 minutes. I thought it was the shortest lived fragrance I'd ever tried. I even got one of those nice, pretty significant spray samples from Hermes of this, and I still couldn't smell it after 5 to 10 minutes. But I was also in the summer heat of Florida at the time. After owning a bottle, it lasts all day. I don't know what happened. It is light for sure, but I can easily smell it all day. I also noticed in this bottle that it's quite a bit more leathery than I had thought. So it's a really perfect balance of a smooth suede leather mixed with Osmanthus's sort of apricot-y, sometimes could lean into like a shampoo-y, fruity shampoo kind of direction, but it's a lot more elegant and nuanced than that, and it's just really beautiful. In the same stroke, Angelique sous la pluie. Again, I think there's just something about trying it in store where your nose is competing with many other fragrances, because I remember trying this a bunch of times and thinking it just disappeared after 2 minutes. But now owning a bottle, wearing it at home in my own space, I can also smell it all day. What's really left over is the pepperiness, those Jean Claude Elena sort of spices that just seem to kind of float and waft around your head. But it's got also that nice sense of damp greenness that Bois d'Orage does. In a way, it's a bit sharper and wetter, I think, than Bois d'Orage, but also more sort of transparent. But it's really beautiful wear in the fall. And also along those lines, En Passant. I wore this the other day, something I hadn't worn since probably last fall. Also perfect for spring. I guess these are all maybe transitional weather fragrances. And I fell in love with it. And the funny thing is I smelled it on a shirt when I was doing laundry, and I was racking my brain, what the heck was I wearing that day? It's so good. I love this smell. And I was trying to think, was it a sample? If this was a sample, I need to run out and buy this fragrance. And after, several hours, it struck me, it was en passant. I love the weediness of this. So we've got lilacs, but yeah, there's like this wheat note that just makes you think of being out in fields in the fall. Really heartbreakingly beautiful. I know that's a phrase that's used a lot, but it really typifies this fragrance. It's one of those that when I wear it, some certain fragrances, and it's funny because when it adds up to like 10 or 20, it doesn't make sense anymore. That when you wear it, you just think, gosh, why do I wear anything else? Wouldn't it like strike such an interesting persona to be the guy that always smells like en passant everywhere he goes? You think I should just trash everything else and just smell of en passant. But then, I think that when I wear Rue Cambon, and then you realize, wait, I actually can't choose if I feel that way about so many different ones. So those are the lightweights. And then I just have 2 newbies. So pretty new release, not brand new, but within the last couple of years, Hortus Sanitatis. Similar thing, I feel like there's really a theme among all of these of sort of a cool crispness, a slight dampness. This, again, you get papyrus, incense. To me, yeah, a little mentholated, not mentholated in the way that like tuberose criminelle is mentholated, but in the sense that you get a feeling of coolness as you wear it. So it's like cool woods, like icy blue woods and incense. It's really interesting. It's not as challenging actually as I expected it based on reviews I had heard. But yeah, I really love it. And it's another thing that I feel like could be signature scent worthy. It's also pretty strong, but not heavy. So it lasts really well. You can smell it well all day with 1 or 2 sprays. But again, it stays kind of airy. And the last one, not that new, but new to me, a new purchase, Boy from Chanel. This is one I had tested a bunch as well, and kind of thought, yeah, it's nice, but do I really need this? And then finally, the completionist in me, being such a fan of Chanel, decided to spring for the 75 ml. And the first time I wore it out of the bottle, I thought, this is fantastic. It's again the kind of thing you feel like you could wear every day and be known for this scent. We get a bit of lavender, a little bit of herbaceousness, but to me that doesn't dominate. What's interesting to me is the dry down is really smooth and almost resinous. I get sort of, I suppose it's like a tonka, little bit of vanillic sweetness in the base, just a touch. But it's like the lightest, smoothest, kind of warm, resinous base you could imagine. But yeah, just very smooth, very elegant, and very addictive and sort of cozy feeling in the base with a bit of a nice fresh start. Anyway, I think that's all my selections for now. Enjoy your October.